The rain hammered relentlessly against the windows of the elegant suburban home, a ceaseless symphony that mirrored the turmoil raging within. Inside, 16-year-old Rachel Carter stood frozen in her bedroom, her grip tightening around a positive pregnancy test. Her heart raced, her mind spun. Her entire world seemed to be collapsing around her. What was once her sanctuary now felt more like a prison, its walls closing in on her with suffocating certainty. Pregnant. The word lashed at her like a whip, cutting through the tense air. At that moment, her mother, Eliza Carter, appeared in the doorway. Her immaculate nails dug into the doorframe as her face twisted between fury and disbelief. This can't be happening. Not to our family, she hissed, her voice barely controlled. Rachel's father, David Carter, a respected attorney with a spotless reputation in their affluent community, stormed into the room. His usual composure cracked, replaced by an icy, seething rage. "Who's the father?" he demanded, his voice low but full of bitter disappointment. Rachel swallowed thickly, her voice barely a whisper, trembling with fear. "Matthew Lane," Eliza gasped, the shock evident on her face. "The mechanic's son? Are you out of your mind? All those years of private schooling, the sacrifices we've made for you, and you throw it all away for him." Rachel tried to explain, to defend Matthew. "He's kind, and he's—" David's voice thundered, cutting her off. "Enough. You have 1 hour to pack. After that, you are no longer welcome here." His words stung like ice. "Daddy, please," Rachel's voice cracked, her tears streaming down her face. "You've made your choice," Eliza said coldly, turning away without a second glance. "So have we. We won't let you destroy this family's reputation." The next hour felt like a blur as Rachel hastily shoved her belongings into a backpack and a small duffel bag, clothes, a few keepsakes, her grandmother's locket, and a worn photo album. As she descended the grand staircase, she caught her reflection in the hallway mirror. Her tear-streaked face, eyes red and swollen, made her look much younger, more fragile. She barely recognized the girl staring back at her. "If you leave now," Eliza called from the top of the stairs, her voice sharp, unforgiving. "Don't think about ever coming back." Rachel stepped out into the storm, the heavy door slamming shut behind her. The rain soaked through her thin jacket as she stood on the porch, staring at the house that once felt like home, now a distant memory. She pulled out her phone and dialed Matthew's number, but it went straight to voicemail. Later, she would learn that his family had moved away that very day, unaware of the storm that had completely engulfed her life. That night, the local diner became her sanctuary. She nursed a cup of coffee, barely able to afford it as she shivered in her damp clothes. Betty Thompson, the kind-hearted night shift waitress, noticed the despair radiating off of Rachel. With her warm smile and silver-streaked hair, Betty slid into the booth across from her. "Honey," she said softly, "I get off in an hour. My sister runs a women's shelter downtown. How about I get you somewhere warm?" Too numb to refuse, Rachel nodded. That shelter became her refuge, her temporary home. But despite the pain, Rachel refused to let her circumstances define her. She woke early each morning to bake at a local cafe, spent her afternoons filing papers at a small law firm, and studied for her GED late into the night. "You've got fire in you, girl," said Rosa, the shelter's director. "Don't you ever let anyone put it out." When Rachel's daughter Sophia was born on a crisp spring morning, Rachel made a solemn vow. "We're going to make it, baby girl."
Somehow.
Years passed, each one filled with sleepless nights, tireless work, and a determination that never waned. Rachel moved into a cramped studio apartment, enrolled in online college courses, and worked multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Sophia, with her bright green eyes and sharp wit, grew into a curious and determined child, her mother's mini-me in more ways than one. One evening, Catherine Lynn, a partner at the law firm where Rachel worked, found her hunched over a legal textbook in the break room. "Why are you studying contract law?" Catherine asked, intrigued. "Because knowledge is something no one can take away from you," Rachel replied, her voice steady. Catherine became Rachel's mentor, helping her secure scholarships to attend law school. With Sophia in tow, Rachel moved to a new city, living modestly, surviving on ramen noodles and sheer determination. And her hard work paid off. She graduated with honors, passed the bar exam, and quickly gained a reputation as a fierce advocate for family law and children's rights. 15 years later, the past came rushing back. One morning, Sophia, now 15, held up a tablet, her voice hesitant. "Mom, isn't this Grandpa?" she asked, showing Rachel a news article about David Carter's upcoming retirement gala. Rachel stared at the photo of her parents, barely aged despite the years that had passed. Her breath caught in her throat. "Yes," she whispered softly. "Maybe it's time they meet their granddaughter." Sophia nodded, her eyes full of understanding. Rachel wasn't that scared, abandoned teenager anymore. She was Rachel Carter, ESQ, a respected lawyer and the founder of the Hopeful Horizons Foundation. It was time to go home. The Carter family's annual gala was the event of the season, and this year, it was to celebrate David Carter's retirement and his legacy as a community leader. Rachel and Sophia arrived at the Cedarbrook Country Club's grand ballroom. Rachel wore a tailored navy suit, her posture confident and poised. Sophia, in a simple yet elegant blue dress, looked every bit her mother's daughter. Inside, the party was in full swing. Eliza Carter moved effortlessly between guests, her social smile in place, as David graciously accepted congratulations near the podium. As Rachel approached the entrance desk, whispers began to ripple through the crowd. Eliza froze mid-conversation, her champagne glass trembling in her hand. When David saw them, his composed facade faltered. "Hello, Mother." "Father," Rachel said evenly, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Congratulations on your retirement." David's voice faltered. This is unexpected. I thought you wanted to meet someone." Rachel gestured to Sophia, her voice firm and unwavering. "This is your granddaughter, Sophia. She's 15 now, top of her class, and captain of the debate team." The resemblance was undeniable. Sophia had David's height, Eliza's refined features, and Rachel's fiery green eyes. Before either of her parents could respond, Rachel continued, her tone resolute. "I also wanted to share some news. I was recently named partner at Lynn and Associates, where I specialize in family law. I also founded a nonprofit that helps teenage mothers. We've assisted hundreds of girls avoid the hardships I faced." Eliza's face paled. "This isn't the time or place," she stammered, but before she could say more, Catherine Lynn's voice rang out from the crowd. "Actually, this is the perfect time. Rachel is one of our brightest stars." Murmurs spread like wildfire as Catherine detailed Rachel's accomplishments, and for the first time, David seemed at a loss for words. Eliza's carefully constructed mask began to crack. The four of them retreated to the country club's library, where David sank into a leather chair, suddenly looking every bit his age. "We thought we were doing what was best," he murmured weakly. "Best for whom?" Rachel shot back bitterly. Sophia, standing beside her mother, stepped forward. "Did you ever even try to find us? Did you care what happened to your daughter? To me?" Eliza flinched, guilt washing over her. We had people keeping track. You knew where we were." Rachel's voice cracked, a single tear slipping down her cheek. "And you still didn't reach out. Each year it became harder to admit we were wrong." David's voice softened. "Pride kept us away." Rachel took a deep breath, her voice now calm but firm. "I'm not here for apologies. I came because Sophia deserves to know her family. But let me be clear. You threw me away. I built a life without you. Sophia has never known a day without love, without support. That's what real family looks like." Later that evening, David stood at the gala podium and, for the first time, shared the truth, how he and Eliza had abandoned Rachel and how she had turned that pain into triumph. He announced a major donation to Rachel's foundation, while Eliza pledged their summer home to be converted into a shelter. The crowd erupted in applause as Rachel stood with Sophia, feeling the weight of the years finally begin to lift. Dinners had become a cherished tradition, a small but meaningful way for the family to rebuild what had once been shattered. Healing, while not easy, was now within reach. Eliza, once the epitome of perfection, began teaching Sophia the family recipes passed down through generations. Meanwhile, David took the time to help her prep for debate competitions, a stark contrast to the father who once felt so distant. They weren't perfect, far from it, but for the first time in a long time, they were truly trying. At Sophia's high school graduation, 3 generations of Carters sat together, Rachel's heart swelling with pride as she watched her daughter beam with joy. It was a moment of deep fulfillment for Rachel. The hardest challenges in life had led her to this point. This was her greatest blessing. Sometimes, it felt like the longest journeys were the ones that brought you exactly where you needed to be. In the weeks following the gala, life was in a state of whirlwind change. Rachel had spent years building walls around her heart, walls fortified with pain, pride, and years of survival without her parents. But now, with Sophia's constant encouragement and her parents' hesitant attempts to reconnect, those walls began to crack. Forgiveness was still a far-off shore, but for Sophia's sake, Rachel was willing to meet her parents halfway. Eliza, who had once ruled her social circles with icy perfection, began to change in slow but remarkable ways. Her sharp remarks and obsession with appearances were gone. Instead, she found herself volunteering at Rachel's foundation, organizing fundraisers and mentoring young mothers. Rachel couldn't help but notice that her mother's once glamorous social connections now worked to benefit those she would have once scorned. One afternoon, Rachel stopped by the newly renamed Carter Center for Young Mothers, the foundation's flagship shelter. Inside, she found Eliza sitting cross-legged on the floor, helping a young mother named Marissa fill out college applications. Marissa's 2-year-old son played nearby, his small laughter filling the room. Rachel leaned against the doorframe, watching in awe. "You're good at this," Rachel said quietly. Eliza looked up, startled, as if she hadn't even realized Rachel had entered. "It feels right," she admitted, her perfectly styled hair slightly out of place and her designer blouse sporting a faint stain from a toddler's sticky hands. "Helping Marissa feels like making amends." Rachel softened at her mother's words. "She told me you've been visiting her twice a week." "She reminds me of you," Eliza said softly, her voice tinged with regret. "The courage, the determination, I didn't see that in you back then, Rachel." "I should have." Rachel nodded slowly. It wasn't an apology in the traditional sense, but it was a start. Meanwhile, David, retired but far from idle, found a new purpose. He offered his legal expertise to the foundation, setting up free legal clinics for young parents. His once immovable courtroom demeanor softened with each case he took on, and the young clients affectionately began calling him Grandpa David. One evening, as David helped a teenage father draft a custody agreement, Sophia entered the room, grinning. "Grandpa," she said, "you're becoming the family's favorite lawyer." David chuckled, his stern expression melting into warmth. "Your mom's still the best lawyer in this family, but I'll take a close second." Sophia sat beside him, her tones suddenly serious. "Grandpa, do you think people can really change?" David put down his pen, looking at her with a mix of humility and wisdom. "Yes, Sophia. If they want to and if they're willing to do the hard work. I'm trying to prove that every day." Sophia's journey had always been intertwined with her mother's, but now, she was ready to carve out her own path. That summer, she began an internship at the foundation, launching a mentorship program for young mothers. The program paired successful professionals with struggling parents, offering guidance and a glimmer of hope. One of Sophia's first men's was Kayla, a 17-year-old mother trying to balance high school with caring for her baby. Sophia saw echoes of her own mother in Kayla's fierce determination and quickly became her biggest supporter. "You're stronger than you think," Sophia told Kayla one afternoon. "My mom always said that to me, and she was right." By the end of the summer, Kayla had not only graduated high school, but she had also secured a scholarship to community college. At the celebration dinner, Kayla tearfully thanked Sophia and the foundation. "I didn't just get help here," Kayla said, her voice thick with emotion. "I found a family." The Carters now gathered for dinner every Sunday, a tradition that felt sacred in its simplicity. The conversations were honest, sometimes difficult, but always necessary. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Eliza turned to Rachel, her voice soft with nostalgia. "Do you remember that little coffee shop we used to go to when you were young?" Eliza asked. Rachel smiled faintly. "Of course. You used to take me there after ballet practice." "I've been thinking," Eliza said hesitantly. "Maybe we could meet there sometime, just the two of us. I'd like to hear more about your life, the parts one missed." Rachel studied her mother's face, searching for any signs of insincerity. But there were none. After a moment, Rachel finally said, "Okay, let's start with coffee." That fall, as Sophia prepared to leave for Yale, Rachel found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. From a frightened teenager standing alone in the rain to a successful lawyer and mother surrounded by a community of love and support, Rachel's life had come full circle. The night before Sophia's departure, Rachel found her daughter packing in her bedroom. "You ready for this?" Rachel asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. Sophia paused for a moment, holding up a framed photo from the gala, a photo of the Carters, including herself, Rachel, and her grandparents. "I think so," she said with a quiet confidence. "You've prepared me for everything, Mom." Rachel smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from Sophia's face. "You're going to change the world, Sophia." "I know it." Sophia hugged her tightly. "I learned from the best." As Rachel watched Sophia drive away the next morning, a bittersweet pride filled her heart. Life would keep moving forward, with all its challenges and triumphs, but one thing was certain: new beginnings were always possible. By the time the storm outside began to clear, Chris had made a decision.